Hello everybody. Yeah, we're back. So we're going to be making low poly models for our new tutorial. So this series is going to be split up into a few things. Modeling and UV mapping are going to be all separate because it's a little bit different than our earlier tutorials. This one we're going to be modeling one of my OCs because she's a very simple character, and I think it'll be a great start for anybody to branch off as they follow this tutorial. If you're part of Patreon, you probably already saw my Patreon exclusive like demo run of this series, and you'll notice we've changed the character a bit. But don't worry, a lot of the principles are the same, and if anything, this one should be a little bit more refined. We'll see how it goes. It'll be good, I promise. All right, guys, let's get going. Okay, guys, as you saw in the intro, we're going to be making a character this go around. And I'm going to blaze through a couple of things just really quick that we've already covered in the previous tutorials. I'm going to explain them quite a bit, but not to the extent that I did in, for instance, our baby's first low poly, the low poly ramen cup tutorial. If you need a refresher, go back to that one. But otherwise, stay here. It should be pretty good, pretty well paced for you. And as usual, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. It trust me, I'll get to it. I promise. It takes me a little bit, but I'll answer the questions. All right, so we're going to start by creating a cube if you don't already have one going. And this is going to be our torso. You can name it in your outliner if you want, or you can just go straight for it. And what we're going to do is we're going to start sculpting out our character's torso. Now my character is pretty easy, pretty simple. So nothing too exciting going on. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to use the loop cut to split right down the middle, and we're actually going to use a lot of mirroring in this. And that's my personal preference for getting the shape to look exactly right every time. So we're going to go down here to modifiers, this little wrench, add modifier, and mirror. We're going to set Y because that's the axis I'm working on. And then we're going to begin our work on this. So we will need to clean up after we do this, but we'll get through that in the whenever we get the torso done. So we're gonna say that this spot right here is going to be probably the belly of our character. So everything upwards is going to be the chest, everything downwards is going to be the pelvis. So let's get started. I want to probably start the chest off with just 2 splits, just like this. And then the pelvis is just going to be 1. We'll work it out from there. Now, if you're like me and kind of like to see all the wireframe even on your mirror, then what you can do is you can go all the way over to this little guy right here, two circles overlapping, and find a wireframe, turn that on. And that'll show you the wireframe for your mirror and your regular. And I'm just going to work on the front facing axis first on this stuff. And I'm going to start shaping out my character from there. Oops. Come on, work with me. Let's get a good... And yeah, it's going to look a little bit weird at the start, trust me. But all things aside, it'll work out. You just got to believe. We're going to set this center point right here. That's going to be essentially like the center of our gut or our belly. So think of that's where the my character's belly button might be. All right, since my character is a little bit feminine and does have a bust, I'm going to model that out just a bit. And I'm not really worried about accuracy to my character at the moment. I'm just trying to get the vague shape. So right now I'm fixing anything wrong with this side that I see, and I'm starting to work out the shape on this side view. Oop. And you can already kind of start seeing the torso shape out. If you feel like you need more polygons, go ahead. Go into your edge loop and add a loop wherever you feel like you need it. Otherwise, this model I am going to try and keep as basic as possible. Like I am going to try and not add too many extra edge loops where I don't need them. I might add one more just to help out the back right here, because otherwise we do not want a character with a, at least for my OC, she does not have a bony butt. Speaking of looking like overly bony or sharp, your like the lower poly you go, the more your models are going to resemble that shape. And the biggest thing I want to tell you is don't worry about it. A lot of people, whenever they start low poly, kind of worry about that and start adding polygons as they go. Don't do that. Just go with the flow, relax, model it out. Whenever you texture it, it will change. It will start looking a lot more like the character you're aiming for. And that's kind of the biggest lesson in low poly that I found is that if you take it easy, it will work out. There we go. That's looking pretty good. I think I do want to angle these a little bit forward and then also push this forward as well. That way we get this kind of slouched default posture for the character. Now we have some things like concaved polygons. And we've talked about this very briefly, but in this tutorial we're going to be doing quite a bit of this where we're going to force our quads into triangles, and we're just going to force those triangles to be pointing a specific direction. So this time I've changed it so that we can get a rounder shape around the back, and we can keep this going all the way through. And one thing about creating triangles that you should keep in mind is that they should always have a pair. And I mean, they should always have a pair next to each other. Like these two are next to each other and these two are next to each other. You have a set of three, and this is a quad, and its partner is all the way over here, then we've got a problem. And this is for more for uniformity. This helps with UV mapping. This also gets you into, if you're new to modeling, gets you into the process of creating objects that are uniform and that fit the more modern high poly standard, which in high poly models, like for video games, for animations, for all of that stuff, if you have tris and you have odd numbers of tris in clusters all over the place for your topology, then you have a problem and you will be doing retopo, and any of the veterans will tell you that that's not a fun thing to have to do. I had one friend, and he's really good at modeling. He's very good at animating, um, and he's had to retopo his character that he's been working on for a good while now, um, twice or three times now, just to get everything working. So it does happen, and it does happen to the pros. But we want to try and avoid that as much as we can, and especially in low poly where there should be no reason to have to retop. All right, so the next thing we want to do now that we have our torso done is we want to create arms and legs. Now this one is going to be pretty easy. it's going to be a lot of rinse and repeat. We're going to see ourselves do this a lot, where we go into object mode, we're going to add a cube, and position our cube where we want, like that's vaguely where an arm should be, and then set our mirror modifier. The only difference is, compared to setting it to Y, of course, or whichever axis your mirror needs to be on, is we're going to set our mirror object to our torso. That way we see the mirror on the other side. So we're going to be seeing that a lot with the arms and legs in this. So these are going to be very basic. We're going to stick to the box shapes that we have. So what I want to do is I want to just try and, in object mode, get the length down that I want. If you're ever wondering about length, for characters, for just, regular two-armed characters, that, or humanoid characters, I should say, what you want to do is just try and figure out where the elbow crease is, which is going to be at the end right here. And I can actually bring this down because we're going to add a little bit of volume to the tops and bottoms of these cubes. But I want to try and make sure that crease is about where the belly button is. So the belly button is right around here, somewhere around that center point. So we just want to make sure that these are long enough. That way our arms aren't too short or aren't too freakishly long. So we're going to go into edit mode now, and we're just going to do crosses on both ends. Now, if you want to beef up your upper arm a little bit more, if you remember with the torso where I said, hey, if you feel like you need more polygons, get the edge loop, you can do the same thing here. What I recommend doing is grabbing the edge loop and putting one right here and then one right here. That way, all you have to do is grab this end cap right here. Make sure you get all or at least most of the faces. And what I like to do is scale it up a little bit. And then push it up like right here, and that gives you this kind of shoulder bump. But for the sake of keeping our polygon very simple, for when we do UV maps, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to kind of ignore that for this case, because I really want us to have a super basic arm. I'm going to shrink down the end just a smidge. And then I'm going to actually take this forward face and shrink it down too, just a smidge. I'm going to take this back face. We'll even grab this guy right here, even though we haven't done too much. Actually, let's do this the right way. Let's extend this out first. Then go into object mode and stretch it a little bit forward. Not by much, just enough. Scale it up. Edit mode. And then, of course, once again, we'll do our last little bit of touch-ups. And like I said, if you don't like how your shape is looking, feel free to make adjustments. So like for me right here, I think our point at the end is just a little too dramatic. So let's bring it down a bit. And it looks good. Arms are a little tiny though, compared to our body. We don't want to make a cheap anime character here. We want our low poly to be well proportionate. All right, same as before. Mesh, cube. Like I said, rinse and repeat. Now you can do one of two things here. You can either add the hand to this, like model the hand into the end of this, Or what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go the hard way and separate the hand. But for right now, all we need to do is just try and get this guy shrunk down and positioned in place. And it doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be close enough. I'm going to actually bring it out here a bit. Oop, come on. There we go. Edit mode. Now I'm going to try and make sure this tutorial is very, very quick, but I can almost guarantee you that when we get to rendering the header and the hair, it's going to be a lot of effort on our part. So let's be ready for that. So same as before, but this time I kind of want to let's see, adjust just a bit, make it a little bit smaller, and then for this front one, just a smidge bit smaller, thinking that the elbow is going to be facing back. All right, we can put this into position now and see how it looks. We'll put it like probably right about there. That seems fine. Yeah, and if anything, we can push this out to be a little bit bigger. Edit mode. And then we need to shrink this side down just a smidge. So lots of tweaks, lots of tweaks. There we go. That looks a lot better. So our last thing is our hand. Oop, we did that in edit mode. We need to always go back to object mode when we're adding a new object. Else it will combine it with the current object we're working on. So the hand is kind of interesting. Now we have two options. We can either do GoldenEye style slappers, or we can do Mega Man Legends style fists. That's what I like to do. I like to do Mega Man Legends style fists. I think it works out much better, and I think it's a little bit more useful. So let's scale down, and then let's just start working it out, trying to get a good size. So probably about right there, maybe a little bit wider. We don't want to overdo it, but we still want it to be a little comical. One of the things about low poly to keep in mind is over exaggeration. Try and line this up with the wrist. There we go. That looks pretty okay. Maybe a little bit upwards. There we go. Edit. We're going to get our cut mode, go into vertex mode, come across. Like usual, but this time on this side, for this face, we're going to extrude out just a bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these points right here. We're going to go into our point view, or our vertex mode. And I'm going to select the one next to it, going down the arm. I'm going to go to Mesh, Merge, and At Last. And that's going to get us this triangular prism on top of our cube, or on the side of it in this case. And then I'm going to push that up just a bit. I'm going to look at my own fist and kind of get an idea of like, oh, where is the, like, how does the curve work? Is it perfectly symmetrical, or do I want it a little bit lower as, you know, as we demonstrate the curve around the knuckles. To help with roundness too, I'm going to push these in just a smidge. Let's take a good look from the top, and it looks good. Now, the arm is also not a perfect square. It's more like a trapezoidal prism. So we're going to do that for the top and bottom, and then the sides. Just bringing it in a little bit. Once again, it doesn't need to be perfect. And there we go. So I might beef this up just a smidge so that we get a little bit more. a little bit more volume going on there for our fist, but otherwise that works out. Now you can go the extra mile. You can extrude this out right here and work that into a thumb if you want. But otherwise, I think this shape will work out for us. I'm going to put it in a position, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of the arms, and I'm just going to kind of rotate it about 80 degrees, 85 degrees, and I'm going to push it to about where I think it would be on the model, and look at it relative to the look at it relative to the torso, and it looks pretty good. It looks like our crease is about the same. It looks like our hand is about halfway, going to be about halfway down our thigh. Oops. So everything looks like it's roughly in the right anatomically correct place. Now, because I like drawing shoujo, I kind of express that in my models. So obviously that means that my character might have, like super long legs and a very short torso. Keep that in mind as you work. Incorporate your own art style and the ways you like to bend anatomy towards characters that you like to see in your concepts and creations. So keep that in mind. You're free to really do almost anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all. Oh wait, hold on. We actually need to apply our mirror first on each one. So we're going to go over here in object mode, and we're going to apply our mirror to each one, and our mirror is going to disappear. But our object is going to stay. And if you see, when we select it, our mirror selects as well. This is because these are now combined objects with these. And that's good and that's bad. That's good that now they're solid objects in our space. It's bad that they're combined. So we're going to go to edit mode, select all, and we're going to go to mesh and separate by loose part. So that's the first step towards making all of these their own unique object. The next step is going back into object mode, going to object, set origin to geometry, and now everything will be back to normal. And these guys will be separate from these guys. And we'll do the same for the torso, but not now. We'll do it later once we're done cleaning up. So our next step is going to be a little bit harder. Like as we go through modeling, it's going to ramp up in difficulty. Well, the next step is the legs. Now, if you have a more boxy character or you have a character with baggier clothes, this part's going to be easier compared to if you have a character like mine where everything's a bit more form-fitting and you need to make sure that at least when they stand idle that all of the meshes look good together. So that's what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start working on getting prepped for our legs. Otherwise though, the process is roughly the exact same as doing the arms. So what I'm doing here now is I'm kind of widening the hips a little bit because I want something a little bit wider than the top torso. And I'll probably want a pretty high edge to work with. I think otherwise this looks pretty good. And then same as before, we're going to add a cube, and this is going to be our thigh. Oh, we need to clean this up. Let's do that real quick. Let's go into edit mode for the torso. We're going to go over here to this monitor on the mirror for the torso, and we're going to turn it off. That's going to reveal to us some odd faces on the inside. This was from the extrude operation. So every time you do an extrude on a model, that you have a clean line of symmetry for your mirror for, you need to go in and clean up those interior faces, or your UVs will not look good, and you'll have a lot of weird clipping that you can't explain. Let's turn our mirror back on. Let's go back to our thigh cube. And what I want to do is just kind of start shaping it, getting it to the right size. And I actually want to, very early on, get this cross working right here. Let's get this roughly into the shape. And now we're going to talk about snapping and using the magnet tool up here. So this is our snap tool. We can snap to various different options, but for this option we need vertex. So I'm going to try and snap each corner of our thigh to each corner of the hip. And then we'll cheat it for like the back right here. I won't snap it at all. So we want to turn snap off, and we want to bring the thigh up and probably over just a smidge. We want enough to separate from yeah, we want just enough to separate the two thighs from each other. And what I'm actually going to do is go over here and I'm going to split this over yeah, probably about that much, just giving us a little bit of space. And this is so whenever we perform our mirror, which we're going to do right now, that whenever we apply the mirror, it doesn't merge the two together, because if you have any point that overlaps for your mirrors, it will merge it. All right, so we're going to try and get this line right here pretty close to the very, very bottom, the very floor of the pelvis. It's okay if we go, if we have a little bit out. This is more following the natural curve of the hip and the thigh. And once again, if you're drawing a masculine or an androgynous or feminine character, these shapes are going to change accordingly. Same for if your character is more muscle tone or more fat. So from here, I'm just going to extrude it down to roughly about the length that I think will work. So I think right here, once again, I'm very much attuned to doing shoujo characters, so my character's legs are going to probably be a lot longer than most of you guys's. Not Sailor Moon long, but still. So I'm going to normalize that face by just shrinking it right here using this, using our scale tool. That way it's even across. And now I'm going to start just adjusting and pushing it in. There we go. That looks really nice. And we'll push it back because once again we want this kind of slouch, this like S shape going on. Yeah, and this part's going to be the hard part. Is trying to get this shape to play around, to work for us, I should say. Since it's getting the pelvis to meet the thigh, which is the hard part. And that looks pretty okay. It's close enough. I'm going to push these in just a little bit. And it's okay if there's a little bit of clipping. We'll figure any extra clipping out later. All right, same for the back here. I want to normalize it. So we're going to grab our scale and we're just going to come across like this. That way we get a nice square on the bottom of our thigh. And this is because, guess what? rinse and repeat. Yeah, we're doing the cross. We'll bring this down. And I do want to bring the forward part of this in just a bit. There we go. Bring in those hips just a smidge. We don't need to go too wild with them. Back to object mode, add mesh, cube. Rinse and repeat. This time we're doing it with a leg. And we're going to actually attach the foot to the leg. Now, you can do the same thing we did with the hand and make it a separate model. But once again, I want to make this as streamlined and as quick for us as possible. So we're going to really not worry too hard about stuff like that. And what we're mainly going to worry about is just trying to get a character that can walk and pick things up and interact with anything as if they did have full motion. But animation tutorials will be far, far into the future. For right now, we just got to worry about getting our character done. So same as before. Oops. And what I want to do for the calf is get it to be the same length as this, from this line right here all the way to this line right here. That's what this line to this line need to be. So I can eyeball it and roughly see where I need to be. So probably about right there. Yeah, she's gonna have long legs. Oop, looks like we missed one. It's okay, we'll do that. And then we'll do our normalize. And I'm sure there's a way to actually cleanly normalize, but we are not going to be covering that today. So let's get it in position right here. And then we'll need to scale it until it's just about, not on that axis, on this one, just about matched up with our thighs. There we go. That looks pretty good. So what I like to do for a little extra added flair is try and bend in the back of the thigh and the calf forward. Now if you feel like it folds too much, once again, don't be afraid to get that edge loop and put it in. That way, for example here, whenever you go to fold these in, you get that little calf bump. But we're going to keep our UVs simple, so we're not going to do that. All right, the last part for the leg is the foot. And we're going to extrude this down like this. And I'm going to try and make a shoe like a heel. So I'm going to do these 3 extrudes until I get something like this. I'm going to look at it relative to the character. It looks about fine. It might be a bit big. So I might scooch it back just a smidge. And then same for down here. I'm going to extrude. Bring it out, and it's okay if it's a little bit past. We'll wrangle it in and then normalize it later. I'm going to combine these, or merge. Oop. Did I accidentally? Yeah, I accidentally added something. So select my two vertex points, mesh, merge at last. And repeat that process for that side too. And then we can normalize it so that the foot is flat all the way across. And then now we can just start nudging. So that can go down a little bit. This can go forward a bit. We can think about pushing this side forward a bit more because it's going to have the big toe. Push these in because it's the end of the toe tip. We can push these out a little bit because not that far, right here, because that would be the ankle. I can shrink this in because this is the heel. I want to do it in respect to the other heel. And then round the back of the heel as well. What we can do is we can make this transition a little bit smoother too by doing that, just dropping it. And there we go. If anything, I'd say we've got it set. So if anything, and you can adjust the shoe size in a way just by taking the tip of it and bringing it forward like that. All right, we're on to the hard part. So let's do the easy part of the hard part. Well, I guess let's quickly apply our mirrors. We can fix the pelvis as we go too. Select all, mesh, separate by loose part, object. There we go. Come on. Work for me. Do some last minute cleanups. I want to kind of try and cheat this so that I can use this right here, this line that comes across as if it's a set of clavicles. There we go. There we go. Oh, don't want it to be too stark though. Just enough. There we go. That looks nice. Oop. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So this is going to be our neck. You can either use a cube or like I like to use a triangle or a triangular prism. I'm going to shrink it down to about the size that I want, and then I'm going to just this time merge at center for vertex points. Shrink it a little bit on that axis and then bring it out a bit more on that one, and then put it in a position, and then of course change size. So because I like to draw a lot of Japanese influenced game assets and characters, I'm going to go for the smaller neck for my character. And then let's start with the face. We're almost done, guys, believe it or not. I'm going to split it in half, and then I'm going to split it this way several times. until I have this shape right here. And what I'm going to do here is, and if your character is bald, or maybe just has a like dome-shaped head, I recommend doing that split on this side too. But otherwise, because we're going to put hair on our character, we're going to delete all of the unused faces that we know we're not going to need. So this top and this side, we're going to delete those. And then what I'm actually going to do is, yeah, let's mirror this so that we can make our life a little bit easier. And I'm going to kind of create a sort of, almost like a mask. And of course, right now I don't really care about if anything lines up, because I know I'm going to be changing it. I want to try and get it as close to where it's going to be in the end. There we go. Looks pretty good. Now for our face. So my character has a very pointed chin. So that's how I'm going to start with mine. And you can see it slowly start to form. Oops. As I work it out. I'm going to bring these points pretty close together and this one pretty far down. That's because this right here is going to become our nose. Now earlier you saw that we forced some triangles. We're going to do the same here. We're going to outline the nose. So we're going to start at the top, go here, then here. And I don't have a good view of the other side. So it looks like our mirror applied it perfectly fine. And there we go. That's our very basic nose for right now. Yeah, from here I just want to try and get the basic shape of my character's face. And just think about what it might look like from the front view. So for instance, I'm going to bring the nose down. And that's about right. If anything, we could probably get a little bit more angular, have a little bit more fun with our shapes. And then bring this side back. Now all of this extra that we're going to see under the chin, that go back to the neck and whatnot, this is most likely going to be a solid color, so we don't really need to worry about it too much. But it's also going to help us whenever we put the hair on. It's going to be a little bit of overflow, a little bit of safety for us. There we go, that looks nice. Now for the side view. So faces, I find, aren't flat like this. They bend out like this a little bit and then bend back as we roll through the forehead. So that's something to keep in mind as you model. And remember, if you feel like, oh, a triangle isn't going the direction you want, don't be afraid to force it. Just remember, it always needs to have a partner with it. And the best part is with how simple our UV method is going to be whenever we do that tutorial next, it really won't be any problem. I'm going to separate these out, and these are going to be for the, I guess the simplest way to put this is these are going to be just spots for the eyes. Right, I want to bring the cheeks back. That way we can finish rounding our face off. And then we can we can start working on the last and most complicated piece, which is the hair. There we go. All right, looks pretty good, though the head is a little bit forward, so I'm just going to kind of reposition it a little bit. Now this one, the next one we're going to be making is the hair. This one's a very complicated model. I'm going to step through the basics of working on it. It's very similar to working on the head, but it's quite a bit, and it's probably going to be our highest polygon object in this set. The lower polygon count you can get, the better. I recommend just trying to see how few you can work into it. But otherwise, yeah, get ready. This part, I will have a section where I just kind of speed model through it. So I will keep that in mind, but I will cover the absolute basics that you will need to know. So let's start with our cube. Same as before, same as always. And for the hair, I recommend, like, even if you have an asymmetric hairstyle for your character, I recommend trying to find all of the symmetric details in that hair first and modeling that out first, because you can add in the asymmetry afterwards and you can adjust it based on the symmetrical model compared to just going into the chaos of trying to understand a unsymmetric design or non-symmetrical design. So I'm going to split this in half first. And we're going to remove, just like we did with the head, 1/2 of it and mirror it. So for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it across right here just once. And then I'm going to split it so that we have 4 all the way down here and 4 all the way across the top. So hopefully that should be enough for us to build out our character's face. So I recommend picking just any axis to start from, and starting from there. You can start from the front or the side. For instance, like, let's start from the side for mine, because that's going to be a little bit easier to work once we think about it. So my character is this kind of like almost like bird shape, where we've got this little like bit that comes all the way out, then it comes in and then out again, just like that. And one of the things I want to also mention is it's okay if you're not totally overlapping the head model at the moment. You'll get there, trust me. We've got a long way to go, though. Like I said, this is the most complicated shape that we have to deal with today, but that's okay. Looks like we are having a little bit of... There we go. Let's bring that down. And bring this one down. We want to round this out just a bit. That top one is fine. That top set of lines are fine, in my opinion. And then we're going to round this one out. I think we could probably push these forward. This one in. Yeah, out a little bit, and then this one will be and that also might just be fine. Obviously for right now, for starters. So now that we have that, we're going to do the next axis, which we can either do the front or the top. So I'm probably going to work out the front. And my character from the front view has a very bell-shaped hairstyle. I'm going to kind of keep that in mind as I go. But it's going to have a part right down the middle, at least for the symmetrical model. It's going to have a part right down the middle. And we're going to start our curve around. Oops. So first here, we're going to bring this one down here and then out just a smidge. And then this one down and out once again, just a smidge. And then down here will be our final, that wider part of the bottom of that bell-shaped hair. So from here, it's going to be hard to see, but we're going to try and vaguely guess where the shape of the face is, because we want to start to concave this part in. So that we can start revealing our character's face. So this right here is the point that I'm going to speed model through it. It's going to be a lot of nudging from the side and from the front. So keep going through that. I'm going to speed through this. You can either pause, you can skip ahead, or you can let it run while you're working on yours. I promise it's only going to be like 3 minutes for the speed model. And we will meet back once we're done with the hair. And with that, I'd say we are done. Now, I did make my adjustments during my speed model, so I rescaled basically to fit the hair around the face better, and of course I adjusted the face too. And there's still some adjustments to do. Like for instance, maybe we don't like our nose position or shape or size, and all of this does need to happen before we jump into UV mapping and texturing and all of that, because it will not be very easy to change it once we have that set in, especially once we have our texture set in. But for right now, I'd say we've got a good model and a good contender for moving into our next phase, into our next tutorial. So I'd like to say big thanks for everybody that joined. And Patreon names should be rolling somewhere about right now. If you want to see more, go subscribe to the Patreon. This is going to be a probably the first tutorial that I've done that isn't just exclusively to Patreon first. It's going to go out to everybody first since it's been so long, and I feel like I owe you guys at least a little bit of something. So thank you so much for joining. As usual, if you have questions, if you feel like I missed something in this tutorial or I didn't explain something enough, let me know. I did zip through this pretty quick, and it does cut out quite a bit of stuff that we've covered in the low poly model of ramen cup tutorial. So, but otherwise, yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and I will do my absolute best to answer. Thank you so much, guys, for joining, and I will catch you in the next one, where hopefully in maybe the next month or the next few weeks, we can get some textures onto this model and call it good. Thanks again, guys. Peace.